Welcome to the third webinar in a series of 9 at the moment. So it's 9 at the moment, but there are high potentials that it might increase to about 12. So keep an eye on that. So I am Ernestine Leons, and I'm the Associate Dean for Law and Police Studies at York St. John University. So I research on shared parental leave and breastfeeding, and I'm currently working on breastfeeding and its wider benefits. I recently launched a documentary on breastfeeding, which I'm sure many of you have already watched, and you would have had the links to that in the Eventbrite when you registered, which was highlighting the benefits and challenges of breastfeeding to health, to the economy, to work and the environment, and most importantly, highlighting the need for change. The documentary highlighted the urgent need for the government to put breastfeeding on the agenda of key areas such as education, family-friendly rights, and the environmental agenda, which unfortunately is missing at the moment. So if you haven't already done so, please feel free to watch the documentary at your own time, and also to join the campaign, sign, share if you are willing and happy to do so. This webinar is part of a bigger project, like I said, in exploring different aspects of breastfeeding, sharing knowledge, most importantly as well, talking about the benefits and the challenges and highlighting that need for a change. Like I said, this webinar will be recorded, and links to previous webinars is also available on the channel that you will receive. Or actually, I think you might have received the channel already in the Eventbrite. So please feel free as we go along to use the Q&A to put questions in there, and we will aim to answer all the questions in this webinar. And if we can't answer all the questions, we will answer them offline and email it out to all of you. That said, I am very pleased today to welcome Lorna Phillip. Now, Lorna is an experienced doula with a long history of working in the individual and family services industry. Lorna is skilled in birth, pregnancy, care of newborn, family productive health, doula, mentoring, and teaching. Oh my God, you are so much more. Lorna is the founder and CEO of Black Mama's Birth Village, which is a safe space and community for Black mamas to be. They provide culturally relevant antenatal education and support from pregnancy through to parenthood. Joining Lorna today, we have Carla, who is also a mom, and I'm not going to say much about Carla so I don't steal the spotlight. And then we've also got Precious joining us today. I think we have a very good panel, and like I said, there might be a few more joining us. But what we're going to do is I'm going to, first of all, hand over to the moms to talk a little bit about themselves and their breastfeeding journey. So I'll probably start with Carla, who can tell us about herself and her breastfeeding journey. And then we'll go to Precious, who is carrying that beautiful baby, and he or she, forgive me, is sound asleep, which is amazing. So that's how we're going to do it. So Carla, please.
Thank you very much. You can hear me okay? Yes, all right. Yeah, thank you for introducing me. My name is Carla, as you mentioned. I'll say my age, but I'm 34 this year. I have one child, my son, and he is 11 months next week. The time's gone so quick, so he's 1 next month. I am from London, from South London, but I moved to Birmingham 6 years ago now. My partner is from Birmingham and made the trip worth it. So I ended up settling here, and we live in South Birmingham. And I must say, as you mentioned, Lorna's Village has been like a virtual, like the massive level of support virtually, but also managed to connect with mums face to face around Birmingham. Being new to the area, it's been fantastic. I have a little boy, as I said, called Ali. He's sleeping upstairs, but may join us later on the panel as well if he decides to wake up. So I started breastfeeding from the beginning. So from the skin on skin moment in the hospital, I had my baby in at Women's Hospital in Birmingham. And I must then lead with, it was a beautiful experience. It was a beautiful labour, beautiful birth. Again, some support from Lorna as well there, and some support with Natalia from a pregnancy yoga session that I think all helped. The preparation helped with the breastfeeding. So I think that may be a question that comes up a bit later, but I definitely think that the prep that you do before the baby's here definitely helps with the breastfeeding journey that you have afterwards. But yeah, it's been very, very positive, and I really am appreciating this space where I can kind of connect with other mums to kind of share that it's not only maybe scary or only tough. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely challenges, but there's challenges in whatever decisions people make. I'm happy to be here today to answer questions and encourage women to give it a go. And of course, we all have our own journey, but I'm here to share mine. So yeah, I hope that's an introduction. If there's anything I've missed, let me know.
Thank you very much, Carla. I would very much like to pick up on something that you said before I move away. You talked about that preparation before birth. Would you like to explain that a little bit more, please? How that preparation actually helped you when you got there?
Yeah, sure. I work in HR in an American company, and my life, and everyone would joke, my baby was my work at the time. So I knew that I would have a bit of a challenge with a real baby coming into my world. So from pretty much, I think maybe the second trimester, I definitely knew I'd have to do a bit extra than kind of just reading a book. I knew that I needed maybe more hands-on support. So one of the first things I did was the yoga class. So I had connected with Natalia from Chai Soul Yoga, and meeting her, she then did say to me once, have you looked at Lorna Phillip's village online on Facebook? And I'd never heard of it. So that was a really lovely kind of connection. And that just was on Facebook, chatting with mums, but that then opened up meeting with mums face to face. But I also joined an NCT class. So that was a paid class. I think the hospital did have something free, but it was important to me to do a class that was near to my home. As I mentioned, I'm kind of new in the area, and I wanted to connect with mums who are in the same journey, but who I could remain friends with after the babies came here. So that, together with obviously some friends and some family support, but a lot of my family and friends are in London. So I just knew that I needed to do that bit of extra work. I don't know if that answers the question there, but that's what that package kind of looked like.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Carla. Precious, you and your beautiful baby, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about your experience, please?
I'm Precious. I'm from Birmingham. I'm 30 years old, and this is my third daughter. So I've got two older ones, and they were all breastfed. Well, I'm hoping this one's going to be combi fed, but yeah, they were all breastfed for about a year. My first, she got about a year and a half.
So just picking up on that, Precious, thank you so much for that introduction, and that's great. See, that sleep, I love to be in that mood. But just picking up on the fact that you have breastfed other children before the one you've got now, I wondered whether there's anything in particular which you can talk to in terms of how you sort of got it established and then carried on with it, please.
So my first daughter, she was prem, so she ended up staying in NICU. So she was tube fed for about 10 weeks. And then when I first went to feed her, I think it was a case of wondering how she was going to manage because she was still so small. But once she latched, they've all latched pretty well, and kind of just naturally got on with it. My second daughter, I would say I found breastfeeding a lot harder that time. I don't know if it's because they were so sensitive, but I just found it a lot harder. And then a midwife came and she showed me it's called the football hold. And until then, I feel like if she never did that, I would have had real problems latching her and getting her established. But that's how I managed to do it, was with that position. So you kind of hold them, you hold their back along your forearm and hold the back of their head in your palm and bring them forward towards you, because the side to side lying, it just wasn't working for me at all. And then with this one, I've kind of continued with that football hold. That's how I started after feeding the first time, and she's taken to it quite well, if I'm honest.
Thank you very much, Precious. You've talked about those early days challenges and how the support you got really helped you. Thank you so much. We'll probably come back to you a bit later. I can see that Natalia has joined us. Natalia, are you able to speak now? Is your technology letting you? Maybe not yet. We will know when technology is friendly to Natalia, because she will just suddenly appear on the screen. So I'm going to go to Lorna very quickly before I come back to Carla and Precious. So Lorna, you have been working in this space for a very long time. I wondered if you could just tell us a little bit more about why and what you have sort of experienced working with moms.
Yeah, so hello, hi all. So I'm Lorna Phillip, founder of Black Mama's Birth Village, based in Birmingham, a doula for the last 12 or so years. Now kind of hung my doula hat up, though I will attend the occasional birth. So I was I attempted to breastfeed as a mum. First of all, I have to say that I'm not a breastfeeding expert, but I have attempted breastfeeding as a mum. And I remember when I had my babies back in the late 80s and early 90s, the support wasn't there. There were lots of assumptions made. First of all, I was a nursery nurse back then, and the assumption was that, well, as a nursery nurse, surely you know how to breastfeed babies. But as I say, you know, jokingly, you know, I didn't breastfeed the kids in my care, so you know, how would I have known? And fast forward on to my doula years, so I've had some breastfeeding training, but I'm not an expert, and that's one thing I really want to kind of flag up. Is there a lot of people out there that have bits and bobs of knowledge, maybe some experience of breastfeeding, maybe some basic breastfeeding training, but sometimes what I've seen happen is that people give the wrong advice because they're not trained, or they don't have the appropriate training. And so as a doula, what our role is actually is to signpost parents and parents-to-be onto appropriate information, and signpost them to evidence-based information, and not jump in there with, you know, why don't you try this and why don't you try that? So that's one of the kind of biggest issues, I think, when we come to breastfeeding, whether it's with your GP, or with a family member, a well-meaning family member. Sometimes we just don't have the right information for the parent, and that can really interrupt the breastfeeding journey if we're giving wrong information.
Thank you so much, Lorna. And I wondered if you can just tell us why. Why did you decide to create, in particular, Black Mama's Birth Village, please?
Yeah. I'm more than happy to tell you. In fact, I got a lot of flack when I first started it. You wouldn't believe, or maybe you would believe. You know, why are you focusing on Black moms? What about the white moms? What about the brown moms? And I am unapologetic about saying that I'm now focusing on Black moms, because as a doula, back in the day, most of my clients were Black and brown moms, and I saw the challenges that we had in the system, whether it be in the pregnancy phase, whether it be going through birth itself, or the postpartum phase. You know, I know that oftentimes we just don't have access to the information. Oftentimes I've seen Black moms dismissed and gaslit and told, no, that's not the case. So I just wanted to start something where Black moms can come along. It's very informal, very relaxed. Come along, share experiences, come with their authentic selves, not feel they have to, you know, put on a mask or be a certain way. Come and be themselves, come and share what they want to share, come and get information, and come and get some support. For me, that's my why. That's why I started the village.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I see Natalia is with us. Natalia, I don't know, your camera seems to be moving quite a lot. I'm not sure if you're able to fix that for us, please. Oh, it's settled. Thank you. So Natalia, would you like to introduce yourself, please? Okay, I think that Natalia is having real problems. I'm sure we can all empathize with what is going on. We've all had our moments before. Now, let's just talk about a little bit about challenges. Okay, challenges with breastfeeding. Oh, Natalia's baby has arrived. I love babies. She's gone.
Hi, sorry, I was having technical difficulties. Did you want me to introduce myself now, or do you want to move on?
Yes, please. If you can introduce yourself and just say what you can say about breastfeeding and your breastfeeding journey, please.
Okay, so I'm Natalia from the East Midlands. My little boy's just turned 1 and we are still breastfeeding. We had a little bit of issues in the beginning. He had a tongue tie which was dismissed and said it was only slight and he wouldn't have any issues. He lost 12% of his birth weight by day 5. Was encouraged to top up either with formula or expressing after breastfeeding. I'm on various different breastfeeding groups on Facebook and saw a picture of another baby with a tongue tie which looked very, very similar to my little boy's. Luckily, we had an appointment with the midwife in a day or so, so I waited for her to come, showed her and said that's definitely a tongue tie. I think that's the reason why he lost the weight. He's gained it now, but I'm still concerned. She said, yep, you're absolutely right. Got me an appointment at Sheffield Hospital rather than at Derby because there was a waiting list. And within a week, he was at the hospital having it. We slowly, and I think one weekend, I'm a single parent, so to do breastfeed off both sides and do a bottle and, you know, play with him, stimulate him because he's a very forward baby. It was too much. So I think one weekend I just said, we're not having any more top-ups anymore. If you want more milk, it's here. There's plenty of it. And that was probably about around September time. He wants milk now. And we've not had any top-ups since. I went back to university in September. So the only time that he has any sort of milk that isn't from me is when he's with my brother or my mum. And that's been our journey since, and we're still feeding now.
It's really, really lovely and beautiful to see that you're still. And why not give him the milk? Like you said, it's right here. Come and have it. So very well done. Really well done. Yeah. And thank you. I think Natalia has touched on something that we've probably heard a lot, or it's quite common in terms of being mixed diagnosed when a baby has gone a tongue tie, and with some medical professionals saying just give the baby formula. So Lorna, may I come back to this one and see what you think about that, please?
Yeah, I actually have very personal experience of this. I had a doula client who had a great birth, and her intention was to breastfeed exclusively. And like many parents, was having some teething problems initially with the breastfeeding. And so I went around and I said, right, okay, let's get in touch with our local infant feeding team at the hospital. And I was sat right next to her during this conversation. And it was just coming out of the COVID times, when there was video consultations being offered from breastfeeding supporters. And she wasn't offered that. She wasn't offered that. She was asked about the amount of milk or the frequency of feeding. She was asked about the output, nappy output. And the person said, well, just give her some formula. Just give baby some formula. And she's like, well, no, actually, I want to breastfeed exclusively. And then I said, I wrote on a piece of paper, ask about loaning a breast pump. And so she asked the person about the breast pump on loan, and the person was really taken back. So where did you get that information from? Where did you get that information that we have breast pumps that we loan out? You know, yes, we do have some breast pumps, but those are for neonates. We don't give breast pumps out. And she said, well, my doula said that maybe you might have a breast pump that you loan out. Well, why have you had a doula? And it's like the whole issue was just kind of sidelined. Here was a mom who was literally in tears on the phone and asking for some support. You know, we know that during this period, many moms had video consultations. That wasn't even offered during this phone call. It's literally like, well, why have you got a doula? Have you paid for a doula? And why don't you give her some formula and top her up?
That's quite something there, Lorna, and I think that probably we'll come back to that in some detail, because I just want to get to the point where I want us to start to explore what the challenges are and why, if there is, or is there any particular challenge as a result of being a Black mother. So I don't know, Carla, if you have any views around this, which you would like to share, please.
I'll try my best with my experience. With the NCT class I went to, it was every mum was white, from a white background, and I think there was one mum who was from an Indian background. But then the classes that are being taught were with English instructors, and I think we aligned on the philosophy and the approach. So, you know, they were very much pro breastfeeding and pro skin-on-skin contact and natural birth. So that was great. But then I was missing the you know, I started talking about creaming my baby and wanting to moisturize my baby, and it was like, oh no, we don't even clean our babies. Like, babies don't get dirty, and I was a bit like, okay, but my skin gets dry, but my baby's skin gets dry. So from the beginning, I was getting information but feeling quite a disconnect. And I felt that even after I had the baby, the midwife team as well. For my birth, I had a lovely Black lady that was in the hospital at that time who just did a shift as a cover. So that was absolutely amazing. But afterwards at home, it was again English midwives. And they did give me again the education and the information. So there were classes that I could go to for breastfeeding, but there was nobody that looked like me that was there. I must say the classes were very useful, as in I could sit there and bring my boob out and show somebody and sit there for whether it's an hour or for just 10 minutes. That was definitely useful. But I definitely know that there was nobody that I could maybe feel comfortable with to ask beyond the factual questions. So I don't really have an answer to say, oh yeah, this was the solution and I found a Black breastfeeding group. I didn't. And I kind of just accepted what was there and was grateful that I had that, because I did hear a lot of other stories, whether it was back in London or even different mums in Birmingham who wasn't even getting the kind of support that I was getting. So I kind of shut up about it and just appreciated what I had. Yeah, so I don't know if that's answering the question there, but that's the experience that I had.
Thank you very much, Carla. Again, just to remind the audience that if you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A for us. Carla, thank you for talking about that. Just one question there. I could do two, but I will probably pick one for now. The one you talked about cleaning the baby, I will reserve that for now. But the question is around the fact that you said you were the only Black person and you were getting support, because the key thing you said there is that you were getting the support. But how much did it matter to you that there was nobody else in there that looks like you or of your skin color?
Yeah, it's every moment in all the sessions you think about it, because the questions all the questions of my experience, it was only my experience, if that makes sense. So yeah, and then I mean people's backgrounds and how, you know, family helps, and or like culturally, like there's a lot of questions that I had that nobody else could relate to. So maybe even though the support was there, I could hold back. I'm quite confident in certain rooms, so I would ask, but then could feel a bit like, oh, this isn't really helping anybody else in the room, so let me shut up now. I've kind of had my turn in a way. And then I can kind of see after the baby came, where I've had some meetups with mums who are like myself, it's just been free flowing, and every time someone opens their mouth and speaks, I gain from that. And I mean, I spoke about the baby being clean, and I can see Precious laughing, because it's like we just get those connections where it's like across the room, like we get it, okay, and I don't have to explain to a certain level to then ask my question. I didn't have to get the whole room onto the same page before I asked my questions, and that's what I was feeling like in some of those spaces.
Thank you very much, Carla. I think you bring in something that is absolutely crucial, which is that cultural dimension, your cultural beliefs and perceptions and practices which you've grown within, but then you're feeling is missing. Hence, the reason why you don't completely feel involved. And that's a key thing that I would like us to explore a little bit. But for now, maybe I go to Precious. Precious, you've just heard Carla talk there. What's your view on that?
Sorry, what's the question?
Sorry, the question is your perceptions around the support, or what challenges did you maybe face, or how did you find it?
Breastfeeding in general. I think number one, nobody tells you about that part where your milk comes in. So your chest is like 4 times the size it was yesterday. And you're in this huge amount of pain. Nobody tells you about that, because nobody told me about that. And I remember waking up the next day. Obviously, my daughter was in neonatal, and I just cried because I didn't understand where this pain came from and why my chest is this huge. Nobody said anything about that. And I think also, like I said before, trying different positions of holding the baby, because I never would have thought to put the baby like that unless the midwife said. And I think you just tend to go with what's traditional or what you've seen before. So I was trying to like cradle the baby and put the head at the nipple, and she just wasn't able to get latched. And then I was thinking, oh, how is she going to feed? And then I was thinking, I'm in so much pain, but then you feel bad thinking about your own pain. So I'm glad that that person recommended that to me, because I think I'm the opposite of Carla in the sense of, if it's something to do with like my breasts or something, I'm not going to ask. So I'd probably just be there trying to struggle in the corner and find out how to do this when I had no clue. So I think, yeah, in terms of breastfeeding itself, there is a gap in where people need support and how they need support, because you don't really learn much about it. You learn about baby and how to take care of baby and what you need to bring to the hospital, but things like feeding and washing the baby. I remember my second baby as well. I didn't know what to do with the cord because my first daughter had been in neonatal. I didn't know how to bath. I just didn't. Yeah, just let's stop focusing on what to bring and more like the practical side of it, because you end up feeling lost almost.
Thank you so much, Precious, and I'm sorry to hear about that. I think it's a very difficult thing, and hence the reason why we're doing this. In addition to the cultural aspect that Carla talked about, you've just touched on education as well. not knowing, not being told, so you're not prepared, and therefore not understanding what is going on and how to deal with it. It's a huge problem that I think many mothers are facing. I'm going to go to Lorna soon on some of these points, but I wondered if Natalia is on the move now. I wondered if Natalia, you have views around this experience, either the experience in the hospital, maybe experience in the community trying to get help, or what are your views around this? We've got some questions in the chat as well, which is great, and we'll be clicking on those soon. Natalia, please.
For me,
Natalia,
for me, my experience, it was very. Hello.
Can you hear us now? You seem to be having some real issues with connection there.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, it's better now.
Okay, yeah. So my support was quite mixed. I found in the hospital they weren't very supportive. They were I felt they were quite rough with trying to latch Matteo, and just kind of on my breast. There was no no, he didn't like it. Sorry, he's shaking his head. And then for support, and I was the only black or anyone of any colour apart from white that was there. And then they were really, really supportive. I found that I had less support when Matteo had reflux, and I found that he had a lactose intolerance. Whereas when I went to the GP, it was very much like, he doesn't have it. You just need to give him Gaviscon. So for me, once I kind of decided that that wasn't the route that I was going down, I cut out all dairy and his symptoms massively improved. So I found that from a medical perspective, in terms of GP wise, they weren't very supportive in helping me find a cause for him, either losing the weight and or in his feeding, and also the lactose intolerance. But the breastfeeding groups, they were really supportive, regardless of my background and the culture and everything else like that. They were really supportive, and if they didn't know, they would ask and say, you know, how can we best support you? Is there anything that we need to know? Is there anything that you think would help? So they were really, really good, really. It was just that, you know, the medical professionals that weren't very helpful. So that was my.
Thank you very much, Natalia, for sharing that with us. You have touched on another thing, which is the information we get from health professionals. I think that so many times we've heard that some health professionals perpetrate myths, but we've heard that. But if you all have watched the documentary, you'll probably be in a better position now to understand what is happening, because our health professionals, apart from midwives and health visitors, which is still very basic, they just get very basic training on breastfeeding, and the rest of the health professionals don't, which is why we have a breastfeeding support for doctors, which is another webinar we'll be running in a fortnight with doctors. So what you're saying there, Natalia, is so true. It is so true. And on that note, I'm going to capture Lorna, because Lorna talked about the cultural aspects. She touched about the cultural aspects in the documentary. She talked about the education in the documentary, and it touched also on the medical professionals. So Lorna, please, do you want to talk to these issues, and then we can start to ask ourselves, what is the way forward, please?
Yeah, sure. First of all, culturally, you know, the group is for Black mamas, so Black, African and Caribbean, or mixed race moms. And as peoples, we were, and to some extent still are, breastfeeding peoples. And so what really gets me sometimes, what really kind of frustrates me, is not only that sometimes moms are getting the wrong information or just haven't got the access, or, you know, kind of equal access to good breastfeeding information out there, but also sometimes it's our families. Sometimes we come across challenges with our own family groups. Generally it's grandma. I've got to say, I'm a grandma too. I try not to interfere, but you know, generally the grandmas, and the whole thing around, we've got to get that baby weaned. Okay, we've got to get that baby weaned off the breast as soon as possible. You've got other things to do. You've got other kids to look after. You've got to go back to work. You've got to go back to study. Yeah, let's get that baby off the breast. So we've got family members sometimes pressurizing feeding parents to get this baby weaned from the breast as soon as possible. And I'm not saying it's coming from a bad place. You know, there's lots of kind of cultural and historical aspects there. Oh, I lost my train of thought there. So it's not, yeah, not from a bad place at all. It's sometimes coming from a good place, but it's just the wrong information. And sometimes I think families try to fix things. So imagine you now as a feeding parent, you know, you're tired, you know, especially in those early days and weeks. It's tiring. That baby is literally glued to your chest, right? You say that to a family member, maybe your mom or your grandma or your aunt, you know, I'm shattered. This breastfeeding is so tough. It's challenging. So in comes, you know, with a cape on, you know, the hero grandmother or the aunt to say, well, why don't you give up? Why don't you give that baby formula? If you're tired, girl, give up, you know, have some formula. Then I can feed the baby at night, or the partner can feed the baby at night if you just switch to formula. And the myths around formula feeding and sleep, you know, if only you'd give that baby a bottle of formula. It's heavy, the milk is heavy, it's going to sit in their belly, and it's going to keep them going all night. And we know that's a complete fallacy. So I think also not only education for you know, the health folks, doctors, GPs, whoever, but I also would love to see some more support and education for family members, partners, grandmas, grandpas, uncles, whoever. I think we need to be supporting them to support the parents and babies.
Thank you, Lorna. You touched on a key point, which is family members. Family members, it's a good one, but how? How can we do that? So going back to what Precious and Carla and Natalia were saying, all in one actually, you're talking about not even having you, the mother who will be facing it. You don't even have the information. You don't even know what to expect until it hits you. So how about family members that probably are not facing the same thing? And like you said, you might find it, oh, yes, it might be coming from a good point, a good place. They want you to give up, give the baby a bottle so they can take the baby away from you and allow you to rest, which is a good thing, but that's not what you want. But how do we get this education to family members when actually even the mothers don't have it?
We need a major health campaign. Right? Look how much infant formula is on TV. Yeah? Oh, but buy this follow-on milk. It's just as good as breast milk. How about we have a campaign about how good breast milk is? Right?
Yeah, Lorna, I completely agree with you. And again, to our audience and to everybody, if you've not seen the campaign is on the, oh, I think I've got a barcode sitting somewhere to my right or my left on the screen as well. The campaign is calling for, like I said at the beginning, for the government to ensure that breastfeeding is in the curriculum for education. Our doctors are not being trained, so how will they support the mothers? Even at secondary schools, subjects like human biology, if we don't talk about breastfeeding there, how will people even know? How would we get this education to a wider society if it's not even in our curriculum? If we have to start to break the barriers, we have to start from the right place, which is education. So I completely agree with you, Lorna. And if you haven't signed the petition, please sign and share the petition. So I'm going to ask Lorna one question, which I hope you can answer in 2 minutes, Lorna, and then I'll go to the questions that we have. The question is, do you think there is any aspect of racism when it comes to breastfeeding in Black mothers? That's a strong question.
I do. Okay, how it shows up is groups that aren't very inclusive, where you have promo material. You have a breastfeeding group, right? On Facebook or in person. What do you see on the leaflet, the pamphlet, the header of the group? You see a group of white mamas sat around with their white babies. Now, what does that tell us? Do we feel welcomed? Do we feel that we should be a part of that group? Yes, we join the group because if there's no other groups around, we join them. But already we're being told, maybe not for you. There's no picture of people who look like you on this group, so maybe it's not for you, or that's how we feel. So even that is a very simple solution. Make the groups more inclusive. Stop talking about pink nipples, right? and pink areola. Even when I was at college, and your pink areola will go darker. Even on my doula course, just watch out for the mama's areola. It's going to go from pink to almost brown. Well, hello, mine never started off as pink. Let's stop this. Let's stop making Black bodies other. Okay, we're here. Deal with us.
Thank you very much, Lorna. And that's a great example. That's a great example. Thank you so much. I think the key message here is make breastfeeding information, education, support more inclusive and take into account different aspects from different bodies. Thank you so much. Now we've got questions, 13 questions from what I'm seeing. And if we can't answer all of them live, just to say, any questions we've not answered will be answered offline and emailed to all the participants. So question number 1 is coming from Shona. It says, how can we make breastfeeding groups more comfortable for Black moms? What would you need? How would you like the space to fill? This is a great answer. So anyone who wants to answer? Carla, Precious, Natalia, Lorna, anyone, please. Or maybe should I go to Carla? I'm cherry picking now. Sorry.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. I think the way I found out about Lorna's group was through my pregnancy yoga, as I mentioned. But if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have found it, or maybe found it like this year when I could have used it earlier. So I think more groups like Lorna's needs to be there, but like supported, because I don't know how Lorna's supported. I don't know if this is unpaid or, I don't know. Sorry if it's a personal question, but if there was like government backing of groups like Lorna's, where it could be then more and more in local areas, and then when you're with the midwives getting your checks for your your urine and all that stuff, it's then prompting and repeatedly prompting to say, by the way, you could be joining this group as of now. You've sometimes got so much information that you're thinking, I want to do that, but not right now because I'm thinking about too much. So also after the baby's here, having GPs and the midwives again bringing up that these groups exist, that would definitely really help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carla. So that information signposting is absolutely crucial. But what will make you feel safe or make the space feel safe for you? So you've talked about the fact that having groups like Lorna's is amazing. Now let's talk about the other types of groups that doesn't necessarily have to be completely Black, but it's mixed. So how can it be made more inclusive and comfortable?
Similar to what Lorna said with the pictures and things like that. So if we do get to these groups, seeing people like ourselves there, that would definitely make us feel a bit more comfortable. I'm not sure if you could then make every single group have only a Black woman being run, like that's maybe not realistic, but I think it's still driving access to platforms where even us mums, I'm doing this session today. It's, it's hard, and I've also done a session through Lorna's group where there was a photographer that wanted to take pictures of breastfeeding. So she came to the house and said, let's take pictures of you breastfeeding your child to then help put them on the NCT platforms and things like that. So maybe we could do that there as well. But again, it's always, I guess, stuff that we have to do on top of what we're doing already, which is always a bit tough. But I think seeing us more in those spaces is just really important, and doing what we can in our time until the maybe government picks up on the kind of campaigns could help.
Thank you so much, Carla. Key message: make the groups inclusive through the messaging, the posters, and so make it inclusive. Thank you.
Something, Ernestine. There needs to be a willingness also from the group owners or the group founders, a willingness to, first of all, open the group and make it more inclusive, the willingness to learn, and maybe if they haven't worked with Black families before. So there's so much out there online now. There's so many books out there. Go and do some learning. The onus shouldn't be on us to do the teaching and the extra work. If you really want to make your group inclusive, go do the work.
Thank you, Lorna. Next question: have you found any online resources that you feel you could really relate to and address things from your perspective as a Black mother, so that as a white breastfeeding supporter, I could better support, as I don't have the same personal experience? So of course, this is coming from a peer supporter who is white and acknowledging that she doesn't have a Black person's experience. So how can she support Black? This is a very good question. I wondered if, Lorna, do you want to take this question, please?
I will. So I will say, I did some training or a workshop or presentation actually for a group of antenatal educators back in January. And one thing I've noticed amongst, we call them birth workers, is, we have these kind of silos, these kind of little groups of birth workers. And when it comes to, for example, white birth workers, what I've said is, reach out. If you find that all you're dealing with is your fellow white birth workers or peer supporters and white moms, look to where you can reach out and reach out to others. Reach out to Black moms. We're here, we're out there, so reach out. I always say take a heart-to-heart approach. We're not aliens, we are human beings. Just come. If you really are keen, then just come and say, can I come and sit with you? Can I come and chat with you? Don't expect to be educated, but come and share experience. Come and sit with Black moms and Black birth workers, and then you'll kind of pick things up, and you'll know then who you can signpost parents to, so reach out.
Thank you so much, Lorna. Some of the questions in here, I think it's kind of been answered already, so I'm just going to go to the ones that I feel that hasn't been touched on yet. So I'm just reading it as it is. So one thing I have also realized to be a challenge with breastfeeding has to do with involvement of males to support. Engaging partners is also very key. As a male who is currently supporting moms with breastfeeding, this has been an actual challenge. So this is a male dad who is supporting the partner with breastfeeding and acknowledging that it can be hard. So I just wonder if there's any tips for dads supporting their partners with breastfeeding. And maybe if Precious, sorry to put you on the spotlight, do you have any tips for that? So you're a breastfeeding mother, what can a dad be doing to support your breastfeeding journey?
I would say don't hug me too tightly. No, I suppose giving you time to express. If it's a dad that wants to help with night feeds and stuff, then your hands have to be free for you to be able to pump to express, or helping with sterilizing equipment, washing equipment. Depending on what type of pump you have, you can end up faffing with wires and it becomes a whole show. So I would say in that respect, just helping to maintain time to pump, and also letting baby get used to you feed them, so it's not as much of a struggle if somebody else does need to help mom feeding. If they're used to dad being if they're used to dad helping out at home, then they could be used to somebody else helping out. So it's also helping baby to get familiar with other people as well. And just, yeah, don't hug too tightly at all. That's all I can say.
So much, Precious. I think you're right. You're coming from the point you explained earlier about how painful and how heavy the breast could be, which I think could sometimes be missed because people don't quite understand what is going on. So thank you so much. I am aware that we have only 4 minutes to go, which means we have a number of questions that we've not been able to answer, which means we've got work after this webinar to answer the questions. But there's just one question I'm going to read out for Lorna to answer, and then I will wrap up the webinar. But just to say to everybody whose question hasn't been answered, that it will be answered and it will be sent out to you also with the links of the webinar. So there's a question here. I'm just going to read it so you get the context. So historically, we also seem to have come across more Black families whose families or friends seem to value large, heavy babies and see formula as a quick fix to achieve this. Is this something that the panel recognize in their in their own circumstances? So I don't know if anybody wants to say something before Lorna, or should I go straight to Lorna?
Can I just add there? Ali was, I don't want to say underweight because that's being like there's a right weight and a wrong weight, but Ali was considered underweight, let's just say, by the family and doctors at the beginning, and everybody were pressuring to do breast milk, formula. And as I don't eat meat as well, even my breast milk maybe wasn't going to be enough. And I mean, he's here now. So I just want to show like he's a really big baby. And it's so funny because now he's got the nickname Mr. Chunky in the family. And I love where I'm just like breastfed. And I'm still, I mean, he's, as I said, 10 and a half months. And I have to just remind the family, fully breastfed from a pescatarian, mainly vegetarian. There was no rusk and no, all these things that they were saying that's why he's this way. And now he's being on food a bit more. I still say, you know, they're like, oh, he enjoys these meals. And I have to say, he's breastfed. And I, you know, I've got my red book with the weight, and I proudly say, I'll show you the weight gain from my breast milk until just recently. So I think, yeah, definitely feel confident to your families I think you need to feel confident in yourself to persevere through. And the families, meanwhile, as Lorna, you've mentioned, like it comes from the cape of wanting to help mum. But be really, you know, why breast milk back? Why formula? Tell them, like, why formula back? They don't know. They don't, only because it's what they know. They can't give you anything scientific to say why it's more better. So say back to them why. And then it's a bit awkward, but then the baby always breaks the ice again by making some sort of noise and wanting a hug, and you move on from that moment. Yeah.
Amazing. Fantastic. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Carla.
to go on from Carla as well, Mateo's been really, really active, so he was never going to be a chunky baby. And I always got comments like that, like you know, he's yeah, he agrees. As he's eating, he's burning that off really, really quickly. So yeah, I agree with Carla that, you know, breast is doing its job. Our babies are happy and functioning well and developing well. There's nothing wrong with breast milk, and why do we need formula? You know, so yeah.
Thank you so much, Natalia. And Lorna, if you can talk in 20 seconds.
Okay, yeah, we love to see a squidgy baby, don't we? We love the thighs and the rolls, and you know, it's a sign of thriving, I guess, culturally, to see a baby with rolls and looking well. Just a quick one: partners supporting the feeding parent. Feed the mother, bring her food, bring them food, feed them, keep them hydrated, do all the stuff around the house. That's how you can support. There's other ways to bond with your baby. You don't have to partners don't have to be giving a bottle. There's other ways to support. Feed the mama.
Thank you all so much. I think we could stay here for 2 hours if it was possible, but I just want to say thank you so much to Lorna, to Carla, to Precious, to Natalia. Thank you so much, and to the little ones for joining us. It's not every day we have the privilege of little ones joining us. Thank you so much. To our audience, thank you. Like I said, if your question hasn't been answered, we will answer it and email it to every single person who registered. And again, just to say, if you're passionate about this subject and you want to support the campaign, please do sign the campaign, the petition, and share it to everyone that you can share it to. And on this note, I just want to say thank you so much. And if you're able, you can join us next week. The webinar is on the 27th with the Army. How is breastfeeding with people who are in the military? How does it work for them? So that's the next webinar, which is next week. For now, thank you all so much for joining, and I wish you have a lovely day. Thank you, and bye.
Bye.
Bye.